To do this, we will invest $150 billion over the next decade, $15 billion a year, and we'll leverage billions more in private capital to build a new energy economy that harnesses American energy and creates 5 million new American jobs. There are 3 major steps I'll take to achieve this goal, steps that will yield real results by the end of my first term in office. First, we will help states like Michigan build the fuel-efficient cars we need, and we will get 1,150-mile-per-gallon plug-in hybrids on our roads made in America within 6 years' time. We can do that. And I know how much the auto industry and the auto workers in this state have struggled over the last decade or so. But I also know where I want fuel-efficient cars tomorrow to be built, not in Japan, not in China, here in the United States, right here in Michigan. Now, when I arrived in Washington, I reached across the aisle to come up with a plan to raise the mileage standards in our cars for the first time in 30 years, a plan that won support from Democrats and Republicans who had never supported raising fuel standards before. And I also led bipartisan efforts to invest in the technology necessary to build plug-in hybrid cars. So as president, I'm going to accelerate these efforts to meet our urgent need. With technology we have on the shelf today, we're going to increase fuel mileage standards 4% every year. We'll invest more in the research and development of those plug-in hybrids, specifically focusing on battery technology. We will leverage private sector funding to bring these cars directly to American consumers. We'll give consumers a $7,000 tax credit to buy these vehicles. Most importantly, I will provide $4 billion in loans and tax credits to American auto plants and manufacturers so that they can retool their factories and start building these cars right now. That's how we'll not only protect our auto industry and our auto workers, but help them thrive in the 21st century economy. We're going to get the automakers here in Michigan, we're going to get them back on track, and we are going to work with them. We're not going to have a situation where they've got to beg and plead to get the attention of the federal government. We're not going to have a Michigan governor trying to beg and plead to get the attention of the White House, because you're going to have a partner in the White House to make sure that the auto industry is thriving right here in Michigan. Now, what's more, these efforts will lead to an explosion of innovation here in Michigan. At the turn of the 20th century, there were literally hundreds of car companies offering a wide choice of steam vehicles, gas engines. I believe we're entering a similar era of expanding consumer choice. There are going to be a whole range of cars that we're producing, from higher mileage cars to new electric entrants like the GM's Volt, to flex fuel cars, trucks powered by biofuels, and all driven by Michigan innovation. You will have a partner in the White House to make sure that innovation thrives. Now, the second step I'll take is to require that 10% of our energy comes from renewable sources by the end of my first term. By the end of my first term, and more than double what we have now. To meet these goals, we will invest more in the clean technology research and development that's occurring in labs and research facilities all across this country and right here at MSU, where you're working. Where many of you are working with farm owners to develop the state's wind potential and developing nanotechnology that will make solar cells cheaper. I'll also extend the production tax credit for 5 years to encourage the production of renewable energy like wind power, solar power, and geothermal energy. It was because of this credit that wind power grew 45% last year, the largest growth in history. And experts have said that Michigan has the second best potential for wind generation and production in the entire country. And as the producer, and as the world's largest producer of the material that makes solar panels work, this tax credit would also help states like Michigan grow solar industries that are already creating hundreds of new jobs. We'll also invest federal resources, including tax incentives and government contracts, into developing next-generation biofuels. By 2022, I will make it a goal to have 6 billion gallons of our fuel come from sustainable, affordable biofuels. And we'll make sure that we have the infrastructure to deliver that fuel in place. Now, here in Michigan, you're actually a step ahead of the game with your first ever commercial cellulosic ethanol plant, which will lead the way by turning wood into clean-burning fuel. It's estimated that each new advanced biofuels plant can add up to 120 jobs, expand a local town's tax base by $70 million per year, and boost local household income by $6.7 million annually. That is something we should be investing in. That's something that I will partner with the state of Michigan, the city of Lansing, and cities all across Michigan and across the nation to create a new reality when it comes to biofuels all across America. Now, in addition, we'll find safer ways to use nuclear power and store nuclear waste. And we'll invest in the technology that will allow us to use more coal, America's most abundant energy source, with the goal of creating 5 first-of-a-kind coal-fired demonstration plants with carbon capture and sequestration so they're not adding to global warming. Now, of course, too often the problem is that all this new energy technology never makes it out of the lab and onto the market because there's too much risk, too much cost involved by starting commercial-scale clean energy businesses. So we will remove some of this cost and this risk by directing billions in loans and capital to entrepreneurs who are willing to create clean energy businesses and clean energy jobs right here in America. As we develop new sources of energy and electricity, we will also need to modernize our national utility grid so it's accommodating new sources of power, more efficient and more reliable sources of power. And that's an investment that will also create hundreds of thousands of jobs, and one that I will make as president. Finally, the third step I'll take is to call on businesses, government, and the American people to meet the goal of reducing our demand for electricity 15% by the end of the next decade. And this is by far the fastest, easiest, cheapest way to reduce our energy consumption. It will save us $130 billion on our energy bills. Since DuPont implemented an energy efficiency program in 1990, the company has significantly reduced its pollution. It's cut its energy bills by $3 billion. That's one company. The state of California, this is an interesting statistic. The state of California has implemented such a successful efficiency strategy that while electricity consumption grew 60% in this country over the last 3 decades, it didn't grow at all in California. Think about that. The country as a whole, 60% more electricity usage over the last 30 years. In California, no change. And this is despite the fact that California has been growing in leaps and bounds. There is no reason why America can't do the same thing. We will set a goal of making our new buildings 50% more efficient over the next 4 years. We'll follow the lead of California and change the way utilities make money, so their profits aren't tied to how much energy we use, but how much energy we save. And I know that this sounds like pie in the sky, but understand this. If in just 10 years, these steps will produce enough renewable energy to replace all the oil we import from the Middle East. All of it. And along with the cap and trade program I proposed, we'll reduce our dangerous carbon emissions 80% by 2050 and slow the warming of our planet. And we'll create 5 million new jobs in the process. If these sound like far-off goals, just think about what we can do in the next few years. 1 million plug-in hybrid cars on the road, doubling our energy from clean renewable sources like wind power, solar power, and 2 billion gallons of affordable biofuels. New buildings that are 50% more energy efficient. And putting people back to work, making those buildings more energy efficient. So there is a real choice in this election, Lansing, a choice about what kind of future we want for this country and this planet. Senator McCain would not take the steps or achieve the goals that I've outlined today. His plan invests very little in renewable sources of energy, and he's opposed to helping the auto industry retool. Like George Bush and Dick Cheney before him, he sees more offshore drilling as the answer to all of our energy problems. And like George Bush and Dick Cheney, he's found a receptive audience in the very same oil companies that have blocked our progress for so long. In fact, John McCain raised more than $1 million from big oil just last month, most of which came after he announced his plan for offshore drilling in a room full of cheering oil executives. His initial reaction to the bipartisan energy compromise was to reject it because it took away tax breaks from oil companies. And even though he doesn't want to spend much on renewable energy, he's actually proposed giving $4 billion more in tax breaks to the biggest oil companies in America, including $1.2 billion to ExxonMobil. Now understand, ExxonMobil is a corporation that just recorded the largest profit in the history of the United States. This is the company that last quarter made $1,500 every second. That's more than $300,000 in the time it takes you to fill up a tank with gas that's costing you $4 a gallon. Senator McCain not only wants them to keep every dime of that money, he wants to give them more. So make no mistake, the oil companies have placed their bet on Senator McCain. And if he wins, they will continue to cash in while our families and our economy suffer and our future is put in jeopardy. That's not the future I see for America. That's not the future I want for America. I won't pretend that the goals I laid out today aren't ambitious. They are. I won't pretend we can't achieve them without cost or without sacrifice, without the contribution of almost every American citizen. But I will say that these goals are possible. I will say these goals are achievable. And I will say that achieving them is absolutely necessary if we want to keep America safe and prosperous in the 21st century. So I want you all to think for a minute about the next 4 years and even the next 10. We can continue down the path we've been traveling. We can keep making small, piecemeal investments in renewable energy and keep sending billions of our hard-earned dollars to oil company executives and Middle Eastern dictators. We can watch helplessly as the price of gas rises and falls because some foreign crisis we have no control over. We can uncover every single barrel of oil buried beneath this country, only to realize we don't have enough for a few years, let alone a century. We can watch other countries create industries and the jobs that will fuel our future and leave our children a planet that grows more dangerous and unlivable by the day. That's one option. Or we can choose another future. We can decide that we will face the realities of the 21st century by building a 21st century economy. In just a few years, we can watch cars that run on a plug-in battery come off the same assembly lines that once produced the first Ford and the first Chrysler. We can see shuttered factories open their doors to manufacturers that sell wind turbines and solar panels that will power our homes and our businesses. We can watch as millions of new jobs with good pay and good benefits are created for American workers. And we can take pride as the technologies and discoveries and industries of the future flourish in the United States of America. We can lead the world, secure our nation, and meet our moral obligations to future generations. This is the choice we face in the months ahead. This is the challenge we must meet. This is the opportunity we must seize. And this may be our last chance to seize it. And if it seems too difficult or improbable, I ask you to think about the struggles and challenges that past generations have overcome. Think about how World War II forced us to transform a peacetime economy still climbing out of a depression into an arsenal of democracy that could wage war across 3 continents. And when President Roosevelt's advisors told him that his goals for wartime production were impossible to meet, he waved them off and he said, "Believe me, the production people can do it if they really try." And they did. Think about when the scientists and engineers told John F. Kennedy that they had no idea how to put a man on the moon. And he told them they would find a way. And we found one. Remember how we trained a generation for a new industrial economy by building a nationwide system of public high schools. How we laid down railroad tracks across an entire continent. How we pushed the boundaries of science and technology to unlock the very building blocks of human life. I ask you to draw hope from the improbable progress this nation has made and look to the future with confidence that we too can meet the great test of our times. I ask you to join me in November and in the years to come to ensure that we will not only control our own energy, but once again control our own destiny and forge a new and better future for the country that we love. It starts right here in Michigan. It starts right here in this election. And if you will support me and vote for me, I promise you, we're going to change this country and change the world. Thank you very much, Lansing. God bless you. God bless America.